Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Janet Lee Sheriff, and I am the founder and president of Newfoundland.Gold. I want to welcome all the attendees today and also give a great welcome to Jessica from BTV, who is our moderator today, King Global Ventures, True Precious Metals, and Sokoman Minerals, who will be our panelists today. I also want to welcome Denis Lavallee from New Found Gold, who will be our keynote speaker after the panel. And a big thank you from everybody at Newfoundland.Gold. We are a strategic marketing alliance that has pooled together to collectively market our jurisdiction, the fabulous province of Newfoundland Labrador, and all of our great companies. I welcome everybody to the conference today, and I hope you truly enjoy the presentations and welcome all your great feedback and questions during the conference. Again, thank you for your time. I know it's valuable and we greatly appreciate it.
All right, just waiting for one more here, but thank you, Janet. And Newfoundland.Gold is an honor. It's an honor to moderate for the Newfoundland Gold Rush Summit today. Again, I'm Jessica Kachachak, VP of Western Sales at BTV and co-host of our flagship nationally syndicated show, BTV Business Television, on BNN and Fox Business News. Thank you, Six, for facilitating. Always enjoy being a part of your very well put together events. Today, we'll be hearing from three outstanding resource companies with great perspectives on exploration and mining, the tremendous potential Newfoundland has to offer. Sokoman Minerals, SIC on the TSX Venture, True Precious Metals, TRU on the Venture, and King Global Ventures, King on the TSX Venture. After a brief intro from each company, we're going to be going into a roundtable discussion and then a live question and answer period. So please, everybody watching, while they're fresh in your mind, send us your questions in and then we'll queue them up for the end for our chat. Finally, we'll be closing out with our honored keynote speaker, Denis Lavallee, founder and president of New Found Gold. Okay, so let's get started with some intros to the companies. Tim, please take it away.
Thank you, Jessica, and welcome fellow panelists and guests viewing wherever you may be. Welcome to our little soiree today. It's great. We were in a heat wave here, and boy, things couldn't be hotter in many respects in Newfoundland, and I think everyone will agree with that comment. I'm just going to give a quick overview as to where we sit with our property portfolio. We are exclusively focused on the island of Newfoundland. We have two 100% owned projects. Our flagship project is the Moosehead project out in Central. Fleur de Lis is also 100% owned. It's up on the Baie-Verte Peninsula, an area with a long mining history as well. And currently, all of Newfoundland's gold production actually comes from the Baie-Verte Peninsula area. So it is another strategic place to be right now. As well, we have two projects optioned to two very high-quality juniors in Cantera Minerals and TransCanada Gold, our Crippleback and East Alder projects. And the blue boxes you see are a new venture we formed with Benton Resources, basically a 50-50 arrangement to explore other opportunities in Newfoundland. Newfoundland is just not simply a one-hit wonder or one structure wonder. There are many, many mineralized structures that rip through the entire province that are linked to significant gold and other metals deposits worldwide. So we're just stretching our legs here, I think, right now, and I think it's a great time to be in Newfoundland. So first of all, our flagship project, Moosehead. It's situated on the same trend as the 4.2 million ounce Valentine Lake gold deposit that we expect to hear some development news on probably later this year. We wish them luck. It's obviously a significant gold deposit. 4 or 5 million ounce gold deposits are not easy to find these days. Our project is excellently located with respect to infrastructure. The TransCanada Highway cuts through it. We're near a hydroelectric substation. Structurally, geologically, and the mineralization style at Moosehead compares very favorably to Fosterville in Australia, and very similar, in fact, to what New Found Gold have. In fact, we are exploring basically the same basin. The visible gold that's been reported has been intersected in drill holes over a 2-kilometer strike length, of which really we've only tested a quarter of that. We have 8 kilometers of the structure that crosses our property, so we still have a lot of work to do. Since acquiring the project in 2018, we've found 4 new zones of gold mineralization, all very shallow, all near surface, all remain open. And to date, we've completed roughly 48,000 meters of drilling in 220 holes. We're currently about halfway through our phase 6 program, 25,000 meters with 3 rigs working. We just put out news yesterday, in fact, on the barge-based program, which will basically be attacking a lot of low-hanging fruit that's just sitting there for us to pick off in the eastern trend. That should start once we finish completing offensive holes with rig 3. And again, I mean, I won't repeat all of our results, but certainly, you know, our first hole was a good one, cut almost 12 meters of 45 grams, and the rest is history. But like I said, we will be a newsmaker going forward, with a lot of exciting drill results coming, as well as obviously our other projects. So Fleur de Lis was targeted based on an opportunity we saw to pursue large gold deposits, high grade as well. In fact, Curranault in Northern Ireland is about a half an ounce per ton gold deposit, with over 6.6 million ounces of gold defined. It's just in a different package of rocks entirely than what we're focused on at Moosehead and all the other companies actively out there. These are highly metamorphosed rocks. They're virtually unexplored for gold, even though there's showings known from there, including several showings that have reported up to 25 grams per ton gold. There's a lot of cross-cutting structures, and that's a theme for me, which is very important. Structure. Rock types are really secondary. You need structures, and the Bayvert-Brompton line in Newfoundland is the equivalent to the Clew Bay line over in the UK, and that's the structure that basically Curranault and Cavanagh and Conanish in Scotland are all basically focused on the Clew Bay line. We've been doing some work ourselves. We kicked off phase 1 this summer with almost 1,000 till samples being collected. They're being processed right now, and we expect to have follow-up program at work in the coming months. And quickly onto our Golden Hope, Grey River, and Kepikek projects, which collectively form the joint venture alliance we've got with Benton. They're all targeting gold, but as you see from our news from yesterday, you should always keep your eyes open for just about anything that looks interesting. And you know, we've managed to find a very interesting occurrence of high-grade lithium that we're actually going to be investigating in more detail in the coming days. In fact, I'm flying down there with Steve Stairs from Benton on Sunday to basically hammer away at that. But basically, Golden Hope is a gold-focused project. There are 2 significant gold projects in the area. The past-producing Hope Brook mine, which looks like it might get a second life from Big Ridge Gold. Again, a 2 million ounce gold deposit, as well as the Cape Ray project from Australia-based Matador Mining. Has over 1 million ounces of gold as well, and that's under advanced exploration. And again, the high-grade lithium thing, we will certainly investigate that to the benefit of our shareholders, but it's currently not, you know, obviously the focus for us. We are a gold-focused company. Grey River is targeting high-grade Pogo type gold deposits. Pogo is a very successful mine in Alaska. Currently resources and past production of over 10 million ounces at about 14 grams per ton. We've managed to locate visible gold on surface, never been drilled. So we are actually applying for drill permits right now to hopefully get a program in later this fall at Grey River. In Kepikek is more in the central trend, if you want to call it that. It's just a few kilometers southeast of New Found Gold's Queensway project, and actually directly along strike from Canstar's Golden Bay project, where I understand they put out some interesting news as well, and we wish them all the luck. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We've got a lot on our plate, but we're well funded. We've got somewhere between $12 and $13 million in the treasury right now. And all in, we should spend $6 to $7 million of that in the rest of the calendar year, which leaves us in good shape starting off 2022. Thank you.
Excellent overview, Tim. Thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to Joel next. Joel, with True Precious Metals, please give us some background information and an overview of your company.
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. And I will just apologize in advance in case I have any tech issues like I was having earlier, but I'm going to roll on in the meanwhile. I'm Joel Freudman, co-founder and CEO of True Precious Metals Corp. We are exclusively Newfoundland focused as well. We've included our title on our disclaimer side, but I'll get into, I guess, some of the more exciting things. We first moved into Newfoundland back in about August, September of last year with our first property pickup. Since then, we did a 5-property acquisition spree over the subsequent 5 months, between last September through to this January, with the last deal actually closing in May to pick up our flagship asset. I'll get into the overview here of the highlights about True Precious Metals. We have over 34,000 hectares spread across 5 properties. The focus, though, really is our flagship Golden Rose project, which is a project we optioned from TSX-listed Altius Minerals. It sits right beside 2 of probably the largest gold deposits in Newfoundland, and certainly the largest undeveloped resource in all of Atlantic Canada, which is the Marathon Gold Deposit. Well, we're their next door neighbors, so we feel we're pretty well situated with that asset. In terms of our shareholder base, we have Eric Sprott, Canadian billionaire precious metals investor. He's our largest shareholder. He came in on a financing in June. Altius is actually our second largest shareholder now. They had optioned us this Golden Rose project in an all-share deal. So, they're betting on our management team as well as our ability to develop the asset to make their equity investment worth something. And we also have institutions in our shareholder base as well as management ownership. Spread across our team, which I'll dive into a little bit. We have mining, capital markets, and legal expertise. My background may be a bit unconventional for a junior explorer co. I'm actually a securities and mergers lawyer by training, so fairly transactional lawyer, which kind of influences how we've worked through the property transactions to get to this stage. And then we have a pretty solid cash position for a company our size. We did a $3.5 million heavily oversubscribed financing back in March. We did the $3.5 million flow-through raise in June. That money's already being put into the ground, primarily at Golden Rose and at a secondary project of ours, Twilight, where we've completed a drill program. And we still, though, have somewhere above $6 million in cash in the bank. So we're pretty well situated to execute on our existing exploration plans, as well as to maintain the treasury after corporate overhead and everything is taken into account. In terms of the team, I've given you a little bit about my background. For an exploration company, you obviously want to be very interested in who are the people really on the ground and figuring out what we may have. Our Vice President of Property Development, Barry Green, he's based in Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland. He's got over 30 years of experience internationally as well as in Newfoundland and across Canada. He's worked in geological consulting. He was an executive at a publicly traded mineral exploration company for about 16 years, which is a fairly difficult skill set to find. In terms of the geological and capital markets experience. So he's helped us land a couple of these property transactions. And supporting him is our exploration manager, Pierce Bradley. We hired him away. He's also got over 3 decades of experience, Newfoundland and elsewhere in Canada. And we hired him away from Maritime Resources, who's putting their deposit further north of Newfoundland into production. So we have someone with mine development expertise on the exploration team as well. And below them, we also have a field crew, a number of geos on the team, people to work with software. So we have a pretty solid presence on the ground in Newfoundland, obviously given that's where our properties are. And we're also supported by our CFO, who's got over 3 decades of experience, and our corporate secretary, who also has over 3 decades of experience. So a pretty sound management team, as well as other personnel for things like communications, capital markets, administration. But what's really exciting, I guess, about True, of course, it ultimately comes down to the properties, the quality of assets you have. Our Golden Rose project here is the nice yellow star. Like I mentioned, it's between the Marathon Gold project, which is over 4 million ounce deposit, as well as the Cape Ray deposit, which is in the bottom left here. That's about 840,000 ounces. So, I figure, particularly as someone not with a technical or geological background, where would you want to look for gold? Probably beside the biggest gold deposits you can find. And so that's where our flagship asset is located, and that's why we're quite excited about it. We've been running a field level program now for about 2 to 3 months. trying to cover as much of the property as we can. And we're setting up to do a drill program in October. So that's obviously an exploration catalyst for the company. We've already secured a driller. We've already submitted permit applications. We've already identified targets. Our goals are really going to be, I'd say, threefold. Number one, infill drilling at the existing zone on the property, the Southwoods Lake Zone, where there's already been gold hits. I guess we don't have an image of it. But number one is kind of further the existing drilling that's previously been done to start to get a handle, I guess, on whether or not there's a deposit there and kind of advance it towards a resource, because we do know there's gold there. Number two, we picked up a property that had visible gold all along it. And so that's certainly going to be an exploratory drill target. These are all, of course, publicly announced. So you can take a look through our past press releases. And the third one is to kind of do some regional exploration to develop a pipeline of targets. There's already 5 or 6 other gold showing spread across the property that we haven't even had time to really get to yet. And so our kind of overall objective here is let's advance the property as best we can to be kind of a turnkey asset where you could have a seasoned mine development or management team come into the company, or in a corporate M&A scenario where someone larger could say, this is a fairly well-developed asset. The existing team has taken it, run with it, moved it up the field, and now it's kind of turnkey for a seasoned operator to advance and develop the property, really. We also, though, do have another property where we've actually just completed drilling back at the end of June, let's say. We did a 12-hole program at our Twilight Gold project. And I will just flip back for a moment. It's further up the structure here. If you look between it's to the southwest of Sokoman, northeast of Cantera. So we're along the same trend, which is a deposit-bearing structural corridor in Newfoundland. So again, we're on the right street in the neighborhood. And we've actually just released our first 2 holes from this program yesterday morning. We did hit gold in both holes, 10 to 11 meters, about 1 gram per ton. So, not extremely high grade. I think probably more indicative of some of the grades that you'll find along that shear zone. But it's also great to actually hit good continuity of intervals across that drill program. And in terms of further exploration catalysts, we still have 10 holes out of that 12-hole, 2,600 meter program still to come as the lab kind of works through the assays. So we should have basically rolling drill results and drill programs over the rest of the calendar year. I understand that's what's got mining investors excited. So we should have no shortage of drilling and drill results. I think I'll wrap it up there, but want to thank everybody for their time so far.
That was great, Joel. Thank you so much. Okay, lastly, we're going to move on to Robert to give us an overview on your company.
Yeah, so King Global is a recent emergent into the Gander Gold Belt. Historically, the company focused on Nicaragua, and the assets Gold Nugget, Miss Pickle, and Gold Boulder were optioned last fall from the Quinlan brothers. And then in July, we got the Chapel Island project. So I've been the CEO of King Global for 3 weeks. So I'm an early player in the area. So please, give me a little bit of a break here. I'm just learning a lot of stuff. So in total, we have 100% interest in 4 highly prospective and previously explored exploration properties in the Central Gold Belt, 4,000 kilometers. The projects were previously explored by Rubicon Minerals through 2002, 2007. They spent about $500,000 on the projects. And the work that they did was really, exploration, channel sampling, grab samples, and then a lot of mapping. And so we're just going to move on from there. The next slide here. A little technical problem. So here are the properties. So the first property will be the Miss Pickle project. So Miss Pickle is on an island, and it's between the south and northern contracts of the Coker Porphyry, Dunnage Melange. And historical work there was about 1,300 rock samples, 525 channel samples. The grades historically were about 7.3 grams over 2 meters and 8.3 grams, 1.9 meters. And we just did a summer work program there. The Chapel Island project is something we just recently were able to get. So it's on an island as well. And the mineralization is from the Dunnage Melange, and it's parallel to the Coker Porphyry. The road zone, we had grab samples there of 95 grams per ton historically and 149.8 in the Lost Swamp zone. And then the Gold Gold Boulder project is actually all within a Newfoundland Gold project. And historically, we've had some grab samples there, one of 167 grams per ton. So, and we just finished that program. So if you just go on to the next one here. So this is the Gold Nugget project. And so the Gold Nugget project, you can see the physical gold there in the different grab samples. So it's about a 10-kilometer trend in the Coker Porphyry, which was found by Rubicon Minerals previously. Still high-grade ground samples there, the 10 strike kilometers. So properties on the Dildo Run area of the New World Island and the Reach Fault to the south of Dildo Island. High-grade samples there, and the Big Oz showing were about 87 grams a ton over 0.8 meters and 50 grams over 1.1 meters and 29 grams over 2.5 meters. These high-grade gold channels are extensively to lower grade values over the entire length of the corridor. And I'll just go to the next one here. And so it just shows you the samples along the 10-kilometer trend, which actually ends in the Ethos property where they've had some pretty significant results there. So we're pretty excited about that. And I'll go on to the next slide. So the summer work program, we spent about $250,000. We're waiting lab results from Eastern Analytics. So we had about 470 soil samples, 108 rock grab samples, 5 channel samples were across it. And we actually found visible gold in 2 of the channel samples. And again, waiting results. Miss Pickle, we did 1,072 soil samples, 2 rock grab samples, 114 channel samples. And then the Gold Boulder, we did 695 soil samples and 1 rock sample with visible gold. So again, we're a recent player in the area, and we're just getting going. And so waiting results of the lab analysis, and then we're going to do a mag flyover, and then post that we're going to look at doing some drilling potentially in the new year.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert. That was awesome. And thank everyone out there for sending all their questions in, because we already have a bunch in the queue. So I'm really excited to get to that portion. First up, though, we're going to go through our roundtable discussion with everybody here. So I'll ask a question or bring up a topic, and then I'll give you each a chance to jump in with your perspectives, and I'll just be keeping the same order that's on our screen here for the whole time. Okay, so our first question is, what are some realistic metrics for investors to look for in terms of gold grades? So let's start with you, Tim.
That's a fantastic question, and probably a term you're seeing a lot of use of these days, in particular with respect to obviously the high grades many companies seem to be experiencing here, which is a good problem to have, is called gram meters. Or basically what you do is you multiply your length of your assayed interval by the grade, and say if it's 10 meters of 10 grams, well, that will give you 100 gram meters sort of thing as a metric. Now, boy, everybody wants high grades, but not everybody can get them. And you can get the same metric really from 100 meters of 1 gram. It just depends on where it sits in the system. Is it near surface? Is it at depth? Obviously, things are deeper. You need higher grades to make them more attractive or potentially economic. So, for me, if someone's getting 40, 50 gram meters, that's 5 meters of 8 grams or, 3 meters of 13 grams, whatever. 40, 50 gram meters is something I think I get really excited about. Now, at the same time, if it's a gram over 100 meters, a bulk mining situation, that's also attractive. So, but the higher the number, clearly, the better, the better it is. So.
Great, thank you. Robert, in your opinion, perspective here, what are some realistic metrics for investors to look for in terms of gold grades?
Well, I think that Tim said it very well. He's a geologist, obviously. Grade is king. It's as simple as that. So when you've got people that are drilling, and the results, and you've got some high grade intercepts, you're going to get their attention. And I guess that's the really big thing about Newfoundland. It's massive grades, over lengths, and Newfound Gold. They're it's a massive deposit. Nice phenomenal intercepts, and so people are drilling all around there, and it just seems to be it's a big discovery zone, and so grade is king. Bottom line.
Joel, what is your thoughts on this?
This was tough for me to follow on this, especially as the least geological probably of the panelists. I would say, we would consider probably low grade would be less than 1.5 grams per ton, medium grade probably 1.5 to 5 grams per ton, give or take. Above 5 grams would be high grade. But as Tim spoke to, it also does kind of depend on how difficult or not it is to access and mine it. I guess I would say in terms of what I see from companies that are more advanced than us, if you look at, for example, Marathon Gold, who's probably one of the closest to the mine, has a huge deposit. I think their average grade somewhere around 1.75 to 2 grams per ton, and that seems to, and also so is Cape Ray Matador mining. So kind of that range is certainly economic for Marathon to mine. It's made a resource for Matador, probably along the Cape Ray Valentine Lake Shear Zone, which is where our properties are, which is where Tim's property is further up, although he's also getting high grades. Those numbers are probably fairly indicative. And then in the Appleton Fault, which is where Newfound Gold is and Labrador Gold, that's where they seem to be experiencing the significantly higher grades. So it's almost there's almost two structures through the province that have their own geological features.
Great, thank you so much.
Tim, that was okay?
2 thumbs up.
How did Newfoundland suddenly rise as an area of interest? Let's start with
Well, a lot of it had to do with land tenure, and I think someone is probably going to speak a little bit more to this, Janet, maybe a bit later on with the reeds and things. But for forever, it was very difficult for prospectors or even small companies like ourselves to even acquire a land position in Newfoundland because of the way the province was basically chopped up into 3 or 4 large blocks of ground that were issued to companies largely with British ties. Don't forget, Newfoundland is still, not that long into Canada. We were our own country and things, but so it was really until the Mining Act got rewritten in 1978 that a lot of these old concessions were just left to basically wither on the vine and allow competitive staking. So really, we've only been in gold exploration mode with hungry juniors and prospectors for 30 or 40 years. I mean, I always say Newfoundland right now is where Timmins was in 1910, and I firmly believe that, and I think that will be proven out. I think you're going to find more than one deposit going to be found here. We're looking at 3 in the development stage right now, and the government has publicly stated they want 5 new mines here by 2030. And I'd like to help them along that way.
Great. Robert, what's your perspective on how it suddenly...
Well, I think, Denny Laviollette's going to be speaking later, but,
yes,
without question, his hard work and perseverance and keeping going, and then, their jewel box discovery. I mean, 19 meters over, 92.9 grams. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And I think, when you got a deposit, results like that, it just brought everybody in. And so it really is an area play. And we're there basically. I mean, they're finding gold everywhere. I mean, there are a lot of companies that are finding phenomenal high grade, lower grade, lower zones, but you got to build on that. But I think Newfound Gold and their massive Queensway deposit really opened up all of Newfoundland, and it's like, a gold rush. Simple as that.
very good. Joel, what is your perspective on this?
I think my colleagues have probably adequately covered this one.
I think so too.
It's hard to be third in line.
It is.
I don't
But why
mind.
don't we start with Joel first next time, though, and I'll go up
Put me
around.
third.
So,
Put me
The
I'll
third.
next one's a
turns.
geological question too. I'll give it my best shot, but
Okay. What are some of the, so this is for you, Joel. What are some of the parallels that you would draw between Newfoundland and other well-known discovery areas?
I'll take my best shot here, which is really more from talking to people who have more experience than me and more technical knowledge. And speaking with a number of particularly institutional equity analysts who cover the gold sector. I mean, there was one in particular at one of the independent banks that put out a research report comparing Newfoundland to the Abitibi Gold Belt, which is a prolific region in Northern Ontario and Quebec in terms of geological prospectivity and the hosting, frankly, of many significant sized deposits. And then there's a lot of comparisons, particularly over on the Appleton Fault on the Newfound Gold side to Fosterville. And I'm just honestly a bit less familiar with the geological specs of that, but I know that's an area in Australia that hosts significant gold mineralization and deposits too. So I think you've got probably two analogs in the geological world that I know about, which are both very good starting points in terms of comparables.
Great. Robert, what is your perspective here?
Well, Fosterville, obviously, if you, there's a great video on the Newfound Gold website, showing core and everything. And so, the Fosterville deposit in Australia is the biggest deposit in the world as far as grade and profitability. And it's uncanny. If you look at the characteristics between Fosterville and Newfound Gold, the Queensway project, and the grades are just mind-boggling. I mean, it's been a long time since you've found deposits with grades like that. So it's highly prospective, and and around that region, your people, as people drill on, and there's huge drilling going on right now, and so 3-4 months from now, everything's backed up, but phenomenal results. So it's a gold rush. There's just no question, and it's that analogy with Australia.
Tim, what are some parallels that you're seeing between Newfoundland and some other well-known areas?
Well, Joel, now I'm in your position from the last question. You basically nailed it, and not bad for someone who claims to not have much of a geological background. I don't believe that, but anyway, you're too modest.
Thank you.
But clearly, our flagship project, Moosehead, is very, very similar in many respects to the Queensway, which, we're exploring in the same basin. It used to be called the Botwood Basin years ago. Altius Minerals basically dubbed it the Botwood Basin, and it kind of fell away for a while out of favor. And but you know what? Nothing like a good drill hole or two to revive or spark interest. And clearly, we both companies, Newfound and Sokoman, our very first drill holes were monsters. I mean, we drilled 12 meters of 45 grams. They drilled 19 meters of 93. We've had a couple of attempts to break the 1,000 gram meter marks. I think we have 25 meters of 34 grams, which is about 850. So, monster holes, and those are important. And, one of the key features, of course, of Fosterville, especially the Swan Zone, which is that gem that's down like 1,200 meters. And as far as that goes, we've been pretty fortunate. We're getting, those types of grades, 30 meters, 50 meters down the hole as opposed to a kilometer. So, and we know these are big structures. They could be very deep. They basically run the length of the island and all the way over to the UK and down into the eastern seaboard of the US. So yeah, we use, and I've been to Fosterville. I've been fortunate to have visited a number of years ago, and actually I have a couple of rock samples that I'd like to lay down on top of a box of core every now and again, and boy, you just can't tell the difference. And as far as our other projects are concerned, Fleur de Lis, the Dalradian, that geology is the same geology that's underlying and containing 6 million ounces of gold at Curranault. So we are chasing monster type targets. Even our Grey River project is targeting a 10 million ounce gold lookalike at Pogo. So these comparisons are real, and the unique thing about Newfoundland, its geological history is allowing us to look for pretty well every type of gold deposit known to man because of our structural history and our rocks. I mean, the island itself is generally a younger suite of rocks than, say, the rest of Canada, especially the Archean in Ontario. But age is really secondary. Structure is key for me, and we've got a number of structures. We're very blessed here to have all these structures.
Very good. We have about 10 minutes left of this portion, so I want to make sure I get some of these other questions in here. I'm going to start with you, Robert. How is infrastructure and exploration work and the local workforce set up? Oh, I think we're frozen. Oh.
You know, by vehicle or ATV, government is very supportive. There's a very well-educated workforce that wants to work, and the infrastructure is there, like the roads, Queensway project. You know, Tim talked about the hydro and Joel. So it has to be one of the best jurisdictions in the world for infrastructure. The government is very supportive, and it just allows for a lot of exploration to go on. And you know, when we start building these projects on and building mines, which are there, it makes them very cost effective. And so it's a phenomenal jurisdiction.
Tim, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, well, again, you know, the road networks, we would, you know, the Trans-Canada Highway runs through many of our respective properties. We're very close. We've had a long history of pulp and paper production as well. So there's a vast network of logging roads. The government over the years has done a fantastic job on building a base geological sort of knowledge of you know, geochemistry, geology, mineral occurrences, even drill core libraries that are great references and as well as sources of information, and the local people. I mean, everybody knows somebody who's got an old gold mine, you know, waiting to be found up by the cabin, you know, sort of thing. And you know, they'll show you their rocks and things. So we've got a very willing and capable and successful prospecting community. And you know, the assay lab and the drilling companies are an hour's drive west of us. We can explore 12 months a year here.
We should point out that you're patching in from Newfoundland today, and you that's where your home base is as well. Joel, did you have anything to add to that? Infrastructure and
this has been pretty well covered, but I'll put in a plug for True here, which is I've been to both of our core assets.
Yep.
By Logging Road, actually. So Twilight is like a 15-minute drive from Grand Falls, Windsor, where our VP lives. Where I like set foot on the property by waking up and driving to the property. Golden Rose, we went through a logging road that's actually about 2 hours, connects with a highway that runs through the middle of Golden Rose. So you just like, you don't have to go into jungles, you don't have to build infrastructure that wasn't there, you don't have to build all the hydro. It makes the region that much more competitive. And I think an implication that's worth mentioning on this question is just the cost structure for a lot of the explorers and then the eventually development companies is lower than a lot of comparable regions where it's up to the companies to build the infrastructure.
Very good. Well, Newfoundland is a fairly new jurisdiction. What are some of the milestones ahead, and how would you guide investors to look at the space when assessing as a possible investment? So let's start with you, Tim, on this one.
Well, location for me. If you're not on a big structure or a major regional structure, and there are unfortunately there are several here that have gold on them. That would be the first thing I would look at if I were an investor. Was like, where are their properties, and you know, what's the history of that property? Has it even been drilled? There's well, prior to 1980, there were 35 known gold occurrences on the island of Newfoundland, and most of those were byproduct of base metal mines. Now, I think the database is somewhere north of 500-600 gold occurrences. We've had 3 mines in production since then, and the government has gone on record as saying they want 5 new mines by 2030. So, with all of that kind of rolled into one package, plus the infrastructure that's here, as Joel mentioned, the government, we're a poor province again now because of the collapse of the oil price there a little while ago, but they are still committed to funding to the best that they can exploration companies. And the geological survey here is second to none. And the permitting process is fairly reasonable. You know, it's like everywhere. Everybody has issues, but you know what? You know, we can get a permit turned around in generally a month or two, which is you know, probably miles ahead of other jurisdictions, even in this country.
Thank you, Joel. What are some tips that you would have for investors when they're assessing the jurisdiction?
I think in terms of the maturity of the gold belt would certainly be, there are a number of companies, especially the companies that have been there for the longest time. So it would be like a Sokoman, Newfound, Lab Gold, you know, certainly like a Marathon, Matador. There are companies rolling out massive scale drill programs or well underway. So, I mean, that's kind of an ongoing source of news flow for investors from those specific companies, but it will also give you a sense of what the geological prospectivity is for gold on any of the structures that are being drilled. I think another major catalyst would be eventually Marathon putting their Valentine gold deposit, getting the mine operational, which I think is targeted for late 22 or early 23. So, you know, that's still working its way along. And then there are also other kind of mines in other regions in Newfoundland coming on stream as well. Like I think Maritime Resources, like there's a couple of them. So I think there's not going to be a shortage of kind of drilling going on across the island. It's almost impossible to book drillers for that reason. So there's a constant stream of news flow out of all the companies in the region, let alone, you know, people exploring their properties through other methods. I think there's a lot of catalysts for everyone to watch. And if it proves out geologically, like any of the comparables that have been referenced on this call, you're talking about, you know, kind of a decades long runway, right? Multiple years and decades, as opposed to what happens, you know, next quarter or next season.
Very good. Robert, what is your perspective on this?
Well, I would really just sort of emphasize what Joel has eloquently said, is that, you know, there's so much drilling going on, and the results that are going to be coming out in the next, you know, 3 to 6 months, there's going to be a lot of stuff. So it's, you know, it's a huge area play, and it seems to be that, you know, the gold is everywhere. So it's just a matter of finding, you know, deposits that are economic, and that takes a lot of drilling. So I think it's a pretty exciting place to be. The infrastructure is phenomenal, and good government behind it, as Tim eloquently stated. And, you know, the gold market, I think, has huge upside over the next while, just based on U.S. deficits and in where the U.S. dollar is going to going. So it's a bullish place. And, you know, the key is that, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. So I think that the gold sector has a very prosperous future in it. And Newfoundland as an area is highly prolific.
Yeah, that's a great perspective there. So we just have one more question, and then we're going to go into the live question and answer. But I feel like you almost just answered this, Robert, but I'm going to ask, why Newfoundland and why now for investors out there?
Well, I'm just restating comments made by Joel and Tim. The infrastructure is incredible, and that makes such a big difference, you know, as to how you can spend your dollars. There have been some huge finds. I mean, you know, Newfoundland, where we're going to hear about later from Denny, you know, a massive find. There are mines there right now going into production. So it's highly prolific. A lot of money's gone into it, a lot of drilling going on. So, you know, if there's a place to be in the world, it's in Newfoundland. You don't have the political risk. You've got a strong government, and you've got that infrastructure. So the dollars go a lot farther, and we'll see what happens. But I mean, looks pretty interesting. I mean, that's why I'm here. Simple as that.
Well put, Joel. Why Newfoundland? Why now?
I don't know how much I can possibly add to, I guess, what we've covered, but I think it's still early enough days that there's probably a lot of runway.
Exactly.
Ahead.
Yes.
I guess maybe that's a summary.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Tim?
Well, clearly grade is king. Somebody mentioned that earlier. And, you know, some of the best grades drilled on the planet have been drilled in this province in the past 12 to 18 months. And, that goes a long way and attracts a lot of fish. So that combined with, and as Robert mentioned, your base costs here. I mean, I use as a budgetary sort of guide, all-in costs, including assaying of, COVID has added a little bit to it, but we're between $150 and $200 all in. Infrastructure. We don't need to build roads or all that stuff is critical to me. And again, grade. You can't argue with these grades. They're going to attract a lot of capital. Eric Sprott, Rob McEwen, two of the biggest gold names in certainly Canada, North America, maybe the world, are here, and they're all in.
Can I lob in one extra comment?
Yes.
Given my transactional background, I think another interesting thing that it's still early enough days that people are busy exploring, but what investors in the market and the existing companies haven't seen is mergers and acquisitions, and particularly big company like majors or mid-tiers moving into the province in any meaningful way. Marathon has some exposure to Franco-Nevada. There's like a royalty stream and an investment. But I think eventually you probably will start to see consolidation in this region because there are a lot of companies, including ourselves, that are smaller. So consolidation for scale, as well as the more advanced projects getting picked off by larger companies. So I think you haven't seen that yet. You haven't seen the major institutional equity flows into the province. And those are probably indicia that we're earlier than later in this ballgame.
Yeah. Right. Well put.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be moving on to our question and answer period now. We have a ton of questions, which is awesome. If we don't get to your question, don't be alarmed. All the presenters today will be getting a recorded version of today's event, as well as a transcription of all the questions, so they can get back to you if we don't get to one of your questions. So let's start with a question here that actually has been asked a few times. What's the longer term solution for the long assay time wait? It'll only get worse, or will it, be on course? Tim.
Well, yeah, it is an issue. We are an island, so we're landlocked. I know, and maybe Denny can obviously correct me if I'm wrong, but they were shipping their samples via truck up to the mainland for testing, and the lab was clearly, even to Voisey's Bay. I mean, I've spoken to most of the principals over there, and even Voisey's Bay pales in comparison to what's going on out there now. And everybody's rushing samples, so there's no such thing as rush anymore. It's back to first come, first serve. Whoever gets their pickup truck parked to the back door first is first. It is an issue, and we're just going to have to deal with it. I know they are expanding the lab in Springdale Eastern, a great lab, great service, great people. They go the extra mile for you. They're working overtime. Sure. So, it is an issue moving forward, but we're all in the same boat.
Thank you, Tim. I see Denis Lavalette has joined us, and Joel's put on his branded cap as well. Did anybody else have anything to add about the long-term solution for the long assay waits? Because I know it's been asked a couple times.
Well, I think there's some cool technology that's coming into this space that I think we should all pay attention to. Sort of chime in. There's a really cool tech and development in Australia that I think a lot of majors. And when I mean majors, I mean like the Rio Tintos and the Barricks and the BHPs and stuff have been, there's been some white papers generated around this. And essentially it's a photon-based solution. It consumes no sample. It's a fraction of the cost. The turnaround is much quicker. And they've put indication forward that they're going to be shifting into Canada and open up facilities. But with all of the capital driven into Newfoundland right now for exploration, which is really an overrepresentation of capital against every other province, I would argue right now, in terms of exploration dollars and exploration activity. I wouldn't be surprised to see other groups like them look to set up office in Newfoundland, or at very least make it accessible for Newfoundland-based companies to get their material tested. I can't speak with any degree of expertise on this, but I know that a lot of companies have looked to expand their facilities, and new companies that are offering unique solutions are looking to come into the market.
Great. Thank you so much. Joel, did you have something to add to that?
Well, given that they're running a 200,000 meter drill program and we've done 2,500 meters, I'll defer to Denis' answer.
Okay. This next question is from David Parks. He says, I'm counting 30 plus names in some state of operation, staking claims, drilling, permitting, construction planning, or mining. My question is, what level of activity is the island infrastructure capable of supporting? So Robert, why don't you start?
Well, it's whatever. It's who's got the money, who's got the connections. You get people on at some point in time. You're last in line, and so you can't get it done because it's a bottleneck. So where is that? You're probably there right now. Trying to get drilling rigs and obviously assay results. So you're there, but that's a really positive development that you've got that much interest and you're going to bring in a lot of resources. So that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing at all.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything to add about the level of activity in the island's infrastructure capability? Okay.
Well, be careful what you wish for, I guess, is
Okay.
is the operative phrase here. I mean, we've been yelling and screaming, come down and explore Newfoundland. There's lots of gold here, believe us, and I guess now we're getting it. But anyway, clearly there are a few bottleneck issues, but there's obviously. I think what I find interesting is that all the companies are getting funded. Normally, it's just a handful that get the lion's share of the money. But thanks to Mr. Sprott and others, everyone's got a shot here, and that's great. The money will be spent eventually, and what it may do is prolong this area play. I mean, there's still ground locked up. The government has an issue with some of the land access in terms of crown land that will eventually be coming open for staking. And I know there's a few choice pieces that Denny's going to be eyeing pretty nervously, and others hungrily. And I see this going on for a couple of years. So let's not be. And as Joel correctly points out, it's still early here. So we could have a dozen more discoveries. It could get worse in terms of how things kind of getting bogged down. But again, I'd rather be worked to death than starving to death.
This next question is actually for you, Tim. One, is Sokoman planning on drilling the Fleur de Lis?
Well, it is an early stage project. We're at the geochem level now. Till sampling works very well in this jurisdiction. We bank on it. If you get delicate gold grains in your samples, like Northern Ontario, I mean, your gold is probably not coming from Quebec. It's local gold. So the till sampling works very well. So we're gonna fully complete that program. There will be a phase 2. I know we haven't made any announcements yet, but the results are even slower for till samples, if you can imagine that, because of the processing that's involved. So I suspect we'll be drilling, or at least trenching, targets, probably in Q2 of 22.
Okay. This next question is from Stephen Carlton. Are Newfoundland's exploration costs, sampling, assay, etc., stable or rising? So do you want to take that one, Joel?
Sure. We've seen, even in terms of the drilling contract between our Twilight project that is completed and the drilling contract we've just signed for Golden Rose, our flagship asset, merely 2 months later, with the same drilling contractor we have a very good relationship with, is already an increase. I don't know what it is, maybe 10% or so. And we still think we're getting below market rates because they told us they're charging other people, given our relationship and past work. So there's certainly cost inflation, cost pressures. We're paying for prospectors sometimes if they're outsourced, $550 a day or something like that, because the outsourcing company will charge a markup on top of the prospector fees. If you try and hire kids out of the schools there, They're charging rates that previously more senior geologists would be looking for. So I'd say the cost structure is still below many jurisdictions,
Okay.
but is rising within Newfoundland without a doubt. And then also, as was pointed out by Tim and Denis about the rush samples, everyone's trying to pay for rush samples. So you don't actually get rushes, but they'll still sometimes ding you for the rush charges, and you're getting normal turnaround. So like the lab costs are going up. So there is a ripple impact, but luckily many of the companies are funded, and that's just part of the game. You're still benefiting relative to other jurisdictions where you'd be incurring those kind of exploration costs.
Great. Did anybody else have anything to add?
No, I think Yoel captured it well. I mean, it's driven really by, I think when you look at drill rates, it's driven by the competition. I mean, it's all supply demand, and essentially, drillers are having to compete to hang on to their drillers and their talented people. And in order to stay competitive, they need to pay them more money to stay. And so that ends up, the companies end up bearing the brunt of that cost. And then as for the lab goes, I mean, yes, Yoel nailed it with the rush, but the reality is that there's no super rush. There's no ability to pay more. This is a non-negotiable situation. It's just a get in line situation, which I think really, really fair, actually. So I'm happy it's like that for the benefit of everyone. Otherwise, I think Newfound would be getting their samples back first. But no, it's really very much a get in line.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. This next question is for King Global from Allison. How close are the GINA samples from the Ethos recent August 9th samples?
Yeah, so they're probably a kilometer away, less than that. So they're right on trend. So our trend is at 10 kilometers, and there's 5 kilometers of the New World trend that goes into Ethos. Their results are absolutely spectacular. So we're pretty excited about that. Obviously, as everywhere in Newfoundland, when people get good results and you're their neighbor, you benefit from it. So we're very excited and look forward to getting better results from them.
That's great. Okay, we have time for one more question. So this is from Christopher. With several small discovery companies in the same general area, is there any thought to consolidating resources with respect to eventually getting a mine built? Anyone have a perspective to share on that?
I've been getting calls.
Okay.
There are interested parties. Even small, modest gold deposits are of interest to someone. Especially if you're a niche miner, and especially high grade near surface, basically you pit it out. And yeah, things as these projects get more mature, I think Denny has a small resource on one part or one showing on Queensway, and we as yet don't have a resource at Moosehead. We have 5 zones. Which one do you pick on to put your resource on? We're trying to make them all one big zone, which is basically what our focus has been. I'm not right at this minute too interested in focusing on a resource, but people, you put out maps and you put out assays and lengths and grades, and people can kind of do the math themselves. So, but could there be some consolidation? I expect so. I'm surprised a couple haven't really been picked off yet. And I'm talking about Marathon in particular. I think they're waiting for the first sod to be turned, but yeah.
Tim, any thoughts you want to leave investors with?
Well, we're going to be a newsmaker on multiple fronts, all very, very attractive targets. Obviously, Moosehead is what most people have associated us with in the past. It's only in the past 4 or 5 months that we've really expanded our property portfolio to become one of the larger landholders. I think people were a little nervous or worried that we were just sort of the one-shot play. Well, we fixed that in a hurry, and yeah, we're going to be making a lot of news and a lot of exciting news. We still have half of our 50,000 meter drill program to report on. A lot of low-hanging fruit waiting to be tested at Moosehead, and the sky's the limit for Fleur de Lis and our other 3 projects. And yeah, and this new wrinkle, I guess, in our portfolio is a lithium. Seems to have lit a few fires for us as well. So again, I think it's a great time to be a shareholder in multiple companies in Newfoundland, not just my own.
Great. Robert, any final thoughts that you want to leave investors with?
No, it's a massive area play, and as Tim stated, there's a lot of drilling going on. We all know about the success that Denny has had in their jewel box, and Joel. So lots of drilling, highly prospective, and I think we're all going to benefit from what's going on. So I think it's an exciting future, and strap on a seatbelt.
Mm-hmm.
Joel, any final thoughts for investors here?
So there we go. Sure. I think for all the reasons that have been outlined, if you're interested in investing in precious metals or commodities generally, Newfoundland has a lot to offer. And then as the plug for our company is, sure, we're going to be drilling as well. We try and execute on the guidance we put out to market. So we do have 2 properties, including 2 key properties with drill results to come, including the one between Marathon and Matador. And so I think that's what's probably the most exciting for us, is we're sandwiched between 2 gold deposits. I'm curious to find out what's under the ground there. So that's what we're going to be working towards the rest of this year and into next year.
Thank you so much. That was great. I've learned a lot so far, and it's been an honor to moderate this event for you guys, as well as thanks to Six and Newfoundland.Gold. So now we are going to move on to our closing comments with our keynote speaker credited with putting Newfoundland in the spotlight recently, Denis Lavalette, founder and president of New Found Gold.
Thank you very much. And I just unmuted myself, and I should pay credit to Tim for putting Newfoundland on in the spotlight, because in many ways it helped us. So with Tim's discovery, it really catalyzed our ability, even as a private company, to garner interest in what we were doing. And so everyone on the line today is playing a role, or has played a role in the past of Newfoundland, and most definitely will play a role in the future of this wonderful jurisdiction unfolding before us. So I'll kickstart the presentation with a forward-looking statement here. Bear with me as I drive this presentation. So please take the time to read through that, as forward-looking statements will undoubtedly be made. Okay, so just to jump through a couple of quick things. This is a quick picture of the overall island of Newfoundland and our very compelling and large land position on that island. What brought us here was macrogeology, as well as some incredible specimens of visible gold and some very high grade. And undoubtedly that's what brought a lot of the other participants in today's presentation and conference into this jurisdiction. And surely there's going to be many discoveries made throughout the island, as we're finally hitting an inflection point where investment money for modern exploration is at long last entering into this landscape. So I'll just fast forward through some of this stuff here in our team, I think, and just dive right into to the project itself. So again, zooming into our overall project here, there's 2 key faults that we're interested in. One is the Appleton Fault and the JBP Fault, and these lie adjacent to the Dog Bay line. Our land is confined to what we call the Davidsville land package, or the Davidsville sedimentary suite. It's a turbidite, sandstone, silicious, and shales of Devonian age, essentially. We're basically exploring both of these faults to find what appears to be, at very least at the north so far, something world class. We had a lot of great work done before we ever got here, so that was one of the great pleasures that we had. Was we got to come in and eat the lunch of some of Rubicon's work, some of Noranda's work in the early years. But I think this is because these groups took to this problem in a very unique way. At the time, Newfoundland, and still, Newfoundland is covered, unlike many other jurisdictions around the world and other orogenic plays, by gravel, glacial till. And this hides everything. This is what makes this very challenging. We've heard a lot about the rationale as to why everything is still here and why hasn't anything been found so far if this is such a great place to look. And the reality is because it's hard. Everything's covered. There's very little outcrop. And so finally we have the technology and we have the capabilities to look a little bit deeper. Some of the work that got kickstarted in the 1990s was large till sampling programs, and these were done in pursuit of base metal deposits like Duck Pond and things like that. So what was being looked for was really VMS style deposits, base metal deposits, and the area was being scoured. The till was being scoured for that purpose. The result, of course, in this area was gold. There was a pretty pronounced set of gold anomalies that Noranda ended up following on, but with very little capital. And so when we look at what some of that work led to, it led to the discovery of some veins, some trenching work where, a soil anomaly was ultimately then trenched with an excavator and some veins were exposed and drilled, maybe with one short drill, maybe two. And that was about it. Exploration budgets then weren't really what they were today. And, ultimately the market environment, the commodity price, the gold price at that time, $250 an ounce, give or take, not exactly a great place to, or a great sphere to be in the gold space. Base metals were the talk of the time. And so this thing didn't really get a whole lot of attention. Moving on to some of Rubicon's work, they did quite a bit of drilling on the H Pond and Pocket Pond trend on this JBP fault. Just in here. And again, very shallow work. And it's when we look at this, a decade later. So Colin and I came in 2015 and we started looking at what some of these historic numbers were like. And really they were jaw dropping. And so it was about recognizing that this was not only an area with tremendous grade potential, but one that was underexplored. There was a tremendous amount of empty space between showings, in and around showings. There was one off or two off drill holes into veins that were exposed at surface, very short things. And then, those companies ultimately walked. So we could really look at this with under a different lens. It was a district scale play, but more importantly, an organic play. And I think that was one of the bits that many missed. We talk about orogenic gold. Dr. Richard Goldfarb, who's an advisor to C2C, is just a tremendous thinker in the sphere of orogenic gold. He's very well published. This is basically the god of orogenic gold belts around the world, understanding these systems better than likely anyone. And if you have the pleasure to listen to what Dr. Richard Goldfarb has to say, you'll learn very quickly that this is a world-class orogenic belt. But even in 2015, when we came in, there was debates. There was thoughts when this vintage of exploration was occurring, very early days in Queensway North. There was discussions that it was epithermal or maybe even Carlin type deposits and stuff were a potential. And so the geological model, everything that we're looking for was really, we're looking for the wrong things. VMS was, again, the primary goal, or base metal type deposits. These orogenic gold things, not only did they not name a lot of the features and faults and things appropriately, the recognition wasn't made really that this is the type of system that we have here. And now when we look at it in 2021, thanks to Dr. Richard Goldfarb, ourselves, and many other people that have came from different parts of this gold environment, whether it be the Abitibi or in West Africa or other places where we know and smell what an orogenic system looks like, and we look at this and it's irrefutable. That's really allowed for us to pursue the right breadcrumb trails, if you will, to make tremendous discoveries. And so that's really what's enabled Newfoundland to be a jurisdiction worth exploring, worth investing in today, because really the formula wasn't there before and it was mislabeled in many ways. Just zooming in here, we're looking at the northern portion of our land package, the Queensway North. We have the Appleton Fault here and the JBP Fault. And a tremendous number of showings, as I've mentioned before. Some of these are historic in nature, and some of these are thanks to us. Our maiden discovery was made here at Keats, and it is a bona fide discovery because what was found at Keats was largely the footwall mineralization, the low-grade smoke stuff. And, they were very close to the good stuff. Had they stepped back 10 or 15 meters, maybe we wouldn't be here today having this opportunity. but undoubtedly Keats was a very, very tremendous discovery. We drilled behind and underneath all of that stuff and came up with a pretty miraculous intercept that's now matured into a multitude of intercepts that would follow that up, and some new discoveries further along the Appleton Fault Zone. The major driving force here, so we've heard some discussion about this by past talkers here today, is the Iapetus Suture Zone. So this is really what underpins this orogenic story and what really needs to be keyed in on. And we'll look at this, even if you look here, Pollock et al. 2007, this image comes from. There was publications in 2013, specifically relating to the Dog Bay line. We had Hansberger 2017, comparing this jurisdiction to the Abitibi. So this is really modern. This is new stuff. And if you look at the money flows in this space and some of the discoveries that have been made along this feature in the UK, specifically Dalradian, through Newfoundland with Marathon, Atlantic Gold being another major deposit here that was sold and is currently producing. We have also, if you go down through the United States, this entire trend extends down there, and you have the Hale deposit, which was purchased by Oceana Gold from Armarco. All of these happened in sort of the last cycle, which is pretty remarkable. And so you have a tremendous amount of thought leadership paying very close attention, and the market was really well rewarded for gambling on this particular feature as it extends from the UK all the way down to Alabama. And so this is really the manifestation of two continents colliding. We have the African plate crashing with the North American plate, and particularly here in Newfoundland, we have a tremendous amount of structural complexity. This crash front is a really thick, juicy package of faults and fractures, and many of them are gold bearing. This is the piping system that really formulated a lot of the orogenic gold systems that we're talking about. And the sheer presence of such distinct and tangible macro scale structures, deep seated faults and fractures, crustal scale breaks, these things allow for world-class deposit potential to occur on this island. It was masked by the gravel, as I mentioned before, and so we've taken to charge to basically unearth a portion of it. Our focus is the Dog Bay line, so in this zone, essentially the easternmost feature. This is what it would look like, hypothetical cross-section through such a thing. So when you have two continents colliding, if you can imagine, it's not this simple, but I'll make it simple. Two cars crashing together in the hood of the cars crinkling up like accordions, and eventually we're talking about rocks here, and they will break. So you'll get these big accommodation faults, these big low displacement faults that occur, and they propagate very deeply. These deep structures basically provide the conduits to allow gold-bearing fluids to migrate through all of that material. And guess what? They do pick up gold from other features. So some of that VMS stuff that we're talking about, the sheer presence of that, this can further feed into this system and allow more metal content to be injected into these fault systems. And so here we have two that we care most about, the Appleton and the JBP, as a hypothetical cross-section through either of those. So again, here, this is a zoomed out view back to that of the entire property package in the Davidsville group. And this is really the sedimentary group that where the JBP and the Appleton fault sit within. We have this Mount Peyton batholith. This is older than the gold event or the orogenic event here. Not sure exactly how much. I mean, that question is being answered, as we speak. There's quite a bit of academia surrounding the age dating and the relationships between all of this stuff. But essentially, we believe that it would play some role, in at very least rheologically, in allowing for fluid pathways in these structures to occur where they do. Some parts are going to be a bit tighter, and some parts are going to be open and dilative and allow for more fluid flow. We took to this with a very systematic approach, as Tim was mentioning on one of his other projects that he's developing. The first step was to use till sampling, geochemically sample the entire belt. So we did that. we came back and we've employed many modern geophysical tools, notwithstanding this airborne EM survey that was conducted. We followed up and achieved tighter line spacing on follow-up surveys. We've also done airborne gradient gravity and many other things to really try to take the lid off of this. Again, the big problem here is till. You can't map the rocks. And so remote sensing plays a really big role in finding gold in this jurisdiction. We compare this jurisdiction to other orogenic belts around the world, and one that we like to compare to, and it's not even us, the academic bodies in Newfoundland have compared it to this for quite some time, is the Bendigo Gold Belt in Australia. This is the Victoria Goldfields. It's been exploited since about the 1850s and has produced over 22 million ounces of gold. This is a very prolific gold belt in Australia. It's exactly the same age. It's exactly the same rocks. We have Cambrian Ordovician to Devonian turbidites, sandstone, silicious, and shales. The metamorphic grade is sub-green schist to green schist in both jurisdictions. The structural conditions are almost exactly the same. We have a lot of the same accessory minerals. So not only are we in the similar system, we're also in many cases, at least in the case of Fosterville, in the same part of the system. And so when we look at an orogenic system, you can be very high up where these faults came through the crust, and gold was carried all the way through the crust and brought very close to surface and precipitating in the form of veins and visible gold. Or you can be very deep down in more ductile rocks. This would be more mesozonal. We're in the epizonal part, the upper part of that. And there's some really characteristic things that we look for to fingerprint the fact that we're there, antimony being one of them with our belangerite and stibnite. We have also a lot of textures, brittle structures, things like that, that suggest that we are in this epizonal horizon. And surely one of the shining stars of the Bendigo Gold Belt in Australia is, of course, the Fosterville mine. And the Swan Zone exhibits all of the same aforementioned characteristics. I'll just dive in strictly into the Appleton Fault and the stretch of it we're exploring today. So our journey began with Keats, and we got extraordinarily lucky. We knew that the structure was right. We had a bit of low grade to work with on surface, some good smoke. There was some high grade flares for sure. Some of the other showings historically on the project were far better in terms of numbers that were yielded from that historic work. We'd even found some of our own. But nonetheless, Keats was the first place we decided to stick a hole. And sure enough, Eureka, we hit 19 meters of 93 grams. And that today has evolved. We've been continuously exploring this zone. We found mineralization in the footwall towards the Appleton Fault itself. And when I talk about the Appleton Fault, I like to depict it as this nice black line on a map. But in reality, it's like it looks here. It's this braided network, complex network of deformation zone, really. It's not a discrete fault or a crack. It's just a braided, diffuse deformation zone that extends basically for many, many kilometers, at least on our land package, almost 100 kilometers. And then to our neighbors to the north also have exposure to this basically all the way to the coast. We started, as I mentioned, with the Keats zone, and that's been developing. We've been continuously following that up and chasing it to greater depths. We've been trying to fill in the gaps because basically what's manifesting here at Keats is that we have this beautiful second order structure that comes out of the Appleton Fault Zone, and we've been systematically exploring that second order structure, and it balloons out into this big dilation zone that formulates kind of the highest, thickest grade portion. And so you'll see a lot of our drilling focused along that trend because it gives us the largest widths and the best grades, quite simply put. And but above and below that are also of material interest. The structure is still there, but the widths taper up to a smaller width. But in some cases, we still get incredible grades. So if you have a look at the table here, you can see some examples of both. Some really nice, big, wide intervals with great grade, and you can also see some pretty small intervals with high grade as well. So the overall the overarching message here, I guess, is that we're going to intersect these great high-grade shoots within a larger prolific mineralized system, and that system is really, really big. So we stepped out 2 kilometers to the north to a zone called Lotto, and Lotto was again, some trenching, etc., that gave us good indices that there was gold there. So we followed up on Lotto, and sure enough, our very first hole came back with 2 tremendous intervals, 4.8 meters of 41 grams and 5.2 meters of 25 grams in the same hole. And so since then, we followed up and we found quite a bit more mineralization at Lotto, and that story is really coming together for us. We followed up on the Dome. The Dome was, this is actually quite a famous showing for the project because it's one of the only places where you see outcrop, and it's this massive outcropping vein. It looks like a big knob of quartz sticking out of the ground, and over the years, people have picked off really tremendous specimen type samples off of the Dome, and so we've been following up on that. And then we sort of split the difference, if you will, between the Dome and Keats, and started working our way back towards Keats, and we drilled into the Golden Joint. And so we've been having a lot of fun pursuing that, and that's delivering some really good numbers. The key here is that there's a lot of white space on this image above, this long section. You can see tons of areas between all of these zones that need to be explored. And these white boxes represent 50 meters. And so if we're looking down at depth here, on average, we're well within the top 200 meters. And that's going to continue to grow. These systems do not stop at 200 meters deep. If we look at orogenic systems around the world, they're kilometers deep in many cases. And so, we could be experiencing and finding new high grade shoots and new additional zones at any given depth. And this is just a 2 kilometer stretch of what we already know is basically a 7.8 kilometer manifestation of high grade at surface. So this is the zoom in of Keats. And as I mentioned before, just to show you, we've been following down this trend, this plunge of high grade, and there's mineralization above and below that. Below, we haven't had as much joy, but again, things can sort of pinch out and then bang, you get another balloon. So there could be repetition as we go deeper along this plane. But right now, we're just continuously chasing this down, and we're having good success above. So we're continuously filling in this above wedge, we call it. And we're getting back some pretty nice numbers from that. So that's the story of Keats. The gold circles represent drill holes that we've drilled and we have assays back for. And like everybody else, assay labs have been slow and the turnaround's been slow. So the gray circles represent holes that we've drilled. We just don't have assays back for. So pay attention to those. And hopefully in the future, we'll be press releasing some of those as they come in. One of the key things with Keats, and I think is going to hold true for many places along this feature, both on our property, off our property, other places, is that there's a couple of things happening. We have this tremendous zone along a second order structure, the Keats main zone. This is a plan view looking in. We're grading towards the Appleton map here. We're drilling essentially west. And as we're doing that, we're intersecting a tremendous amount of footwall mineralization. So there's other veins back here. There's other potential zones. And at some depth, they could blow up and become, more important than even the Keats. We don't know yet. But ultimately, there's a ton of mineralization back here. And we're really right now, mission number one was to understand what's happening with the main zone. And we're discretely modeling out the footwall zones as we speak to get a better understanding of their architecture. And this is just all illuminating what really there is to pay attention to as we move our exploration forward, above, below. If we look over here on the west side of the fault, I got the question the other day about how come we're always drilling on the east side of the fault? Does that mean the west side's no good? And the west side's really good. We've got some really good examples of that. And some of our neighbors to the north have been exclusively finding things on the west side of the fault. And so the west side, by all means, has just as much potential. It's just that we've had greater success on the east side, and we started there. So eventually we are going to move over. And if you look at some of the sparse drilling at Coke Zone, even drilling the other way, not only are we hitting some high grade close to surface, but we're hitting some pretty good low grade intercepts. This is a very, very big envelope, and this entire thing spans almost 500 meters end to end. So it's a very, very compelling thing. And so, it's not to rule out the fact that this could maybe even one day materialize into a bulk tonnage situation, even though we have a very key focus on developing high-grade tons as we speak. Jumping up to Lotto in the same fashion, we're looking down on these zones: Lotto, Dome, a Golden Joint. So as you can see, we call it the Golden Joint. We've got the Lotto baseline fault somewhat intersecting in theory with the Appleton fault zone. We've been drilling that intersection, hence the term Golden Joint, and we're finding mineralization sitting inside of the Appleton fault. It's not the first time we found it. As we went up to Lotto, we drilled through Lotto and we kept the drill hole running, and we found the Sunday zone sitting inside the fault. And so the fault is open for business, and it's actually a target in and of itself. And so we're trying to make heads or tails of that too. So there's tons of exploration potential, not only in these second order systems and all of this space in between them, connecting them, but moreover in the Appleton fault itself. And some of these numbers are just absolutely incredible, as you can see from some of our most recent results from Golden Joint. And I'll point out the 5.3 meters of 430 grams. And if you go further to the east, you have this little zone over here, Road. We haven't ignored it. We haven't forgotten it. It's not any less important. But Road has some pretty cool numbers. I mean, we've just released as a batch of other holes, a couple of intercepts here, 2.9 meters of 9 grams and 35 grams over 2.7 meters. So these are great intercepts. Anywhere else in the world, these would be headlines. And for us, somehow they got lost in the couch cushions to some degree. But Road is a very important zone for us. And if you look again, the width of this section, so forget about the strike. The strike extent is huge. It's beyond this map. But the width is really big too. The amount of prospective ground just along the 7.8 kilometer stretch in strike, both on the hanging wall side of the Appleton fault zone or to the east of it and the footwall side to the west of it, there's a tremendous amount of exploration potential, the possibility for new economic zones to be folded into this thing. This is just some zoom ins here of a couple of the other zones we've talked about in the cross section of Lotto. I'll skip through some of that and get into some of what the gold looks like. So one of the cool characteristics, we talk about epizonal. We mentioned that earlier in the presentation, and the comparison to Fosterville. And one of the cool things you see about this thing is that when you look at some of these veins, they're somewhat unremarkable, I'll say, being a geologist that's worked in orogenic camps around the world, mostly in mesozonal systems or mesothermal systems, in the Archean greenstone belts that we're very familiar with in Canada, like in the Abitibi, or even in West Africa in the Ashanti Belt. And you don't really see these milky white veins being all that attractive. And here, what's very unique about this is not only are these veins gold bearing, but if you look closely, you can see all of this fine grained disseminated gold, it seems, inside of the matrix of this quartz. And that's a telltale sign that this happened very explosively. This is an epizonal deposit. We have vuggy texture in our veins. There's also this strange kind of almost crustiform, coliform banding that we get. That's almost an epithermal flavor, and maybe why this was mischaracterized as an epithermal deposit once upon a time. There's a lot of really cool things that we have, not just in terms of grades in common with Fosterville, but also all of these textures and the way that this gold occurs. It's very, very unique. So again, just some more images of some what this looks like when you drill it. And I'm just going to jump over briefly 5 kilometers east. So this is the parallel trend to Pocket Pond, H Pond. So this is the JBP system. It's very big. It's very impressive. And we're really excited to be drilling this. So it's one that for us, we're drilling actually as we speak, and we're going to continue to do that. But we just have very little drilling anywhere outside of Pocket Pond or H Pond. But we have this system with surface mineralization for 12.4 kilometers. And this is the map that I like probably best, which shows both of those things I just talked about. So you've got the 7.8 kilometers on the Appleton. All of these samples are greater than 5 grams that are red. And you can see that both on JBP and on Appleton. And we've really just tested a few little spots. And as we're adding rigs, we're getting a chance to revisit and fill in gaps and find new things. So if you can imagine this system extending down hundreds and hundreds of meters in 3D, the number of new zones that we could find, how many Keatses might be here, how many Lottos and roads and golden joints might exist along the Appleton Fault itself, or some of these second order features. It's just really a bottomless pit of potential on the northern side of our project. And I'll make this last comment as I guess we're wrapping up on time, but both of these structures extend for 70 kilometers to the south, and we've got great soil targets plotting along those structures. And so we're working this up as we speak. We've got a team of about 15 people in a little camp down here, and we've been working up, scouring this ground, opening it up. A couple of excavators are in there now, trenching on things. And so we're really excited to find new things down here, and try to unlock some potential on the southern extension of both the Appleton and the JBP on the southern portion of the project. So that's basically it. I think we can probably put it in park there. Some things to look out for with New Found Gold in the future. We're really key on being a data-driven company and trying to employ the most modern mining, exploration 2.0 techniques. We've got a close relationship with my other company, Goldspot Discoveries, and we're currently looking into new tools that we think will give us an edge. And one of them is we haven't made a decision on it yet, but we've certainly put in many hours of research, and it's about possibly being using seismic in this land package to help sharpen our exploration efforts. And so with that, I'll hand it off, and really exciting times for Newfoundland, exciting for all the other companies. There's a tremendous amount of potential here, and wish everybody the best.
Hello again, everyone. Janet Lee Sheriff. On behalf of everybody with Newfoundland.Gold, I want to thank you for your time today. I also want to thank CSR Management and their fabulous team for helping to pull this together, along with Six and Dasha. A big thank you. Our panelists, 3 fabulous companies, thank you so much for your time. And Jessica and Denis Lavallee, thank you again. I welcome everybody to follow Newfoundland.Gold. Our website is that. You can also watch the conference again on that website, as well as Six.com, SIX.com. Thank you on behalf of all the member companies of Newfoundland.Gold. We have a fabulous, very busy exploration season underway, and there's a lot of results that we're expecting for this fall. It's been an exciting season in Newfoundland, Labrador. And I also look forward to seeing everybody at the Precious Metals Summit. Newfoundland Gold will be there and will be representing the jurisdiction along with all of our member companies. Please look us up. And we're proud to announce that we'll be having a great presence at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, and look forward to seeing everybody there. Again, follow us on Newfoundland.Gold and follow us on social media. Thank you again for your time and your interest, and have a wonderful day.